throw it away.
Oh, Daryl. I'm not gonna throw it away. So Brett, Daryl, and me are the only ones.
Well, it must have had some heat in it. My head's sweating.
Yeah, it does. It's
I hope I didn't overdo it.
it's not everybody, but it's got some heat.
It's good for me.
Good for you. Christopher Kelly. Here's one of the bot dudes, I believe. Oh no, Christopher Kelly's the reporter that writes in the Mountaineer.
Hey, Greta, I don't know if you know this, but your mic's on.
What's on?
Your mic, we can all hear you. But Chris Kelly is, yeah, the reporter for the Mountaineer.
Oh, you can hear me.
Yes, I can. I just wanted to let you know, just in case you guys didn't know.
I didn't. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Hi, Britt. I can see you online. Can you hear us from in the room? Hi, Tanya. Can you hear us from inside the room?
Hey, Macy, I can hear you. Sorry, I kept hitting the wrong button.
No problem. I'm glad you guys can hear us. Thank you.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
can hear you too. So.
You
With
guys
that,
still hear us?
Tanya, can you hear us?
We can hear you guys.
Great. Thank
can
you
hear
very
you.
much. Thank you very much. So welcome everyone to the September 2nd Board of Trustees open meeting. Time is now 7:06. Thanks for your patience while we had executive session. Executive session, no decisions were made. And it was time well spent, so I appreciate your patience. So, Macy, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Billy,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Thanks, Ty.
I'm here.
Traumatized, but here.
Trustee Corvalon. Turn mine way down. Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
thank you. Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
and Trustee Ty.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to note for the record that Trustee Larson is absent this evening.
Thanks to Macy. Thanks, everyone. There are 5 items on consent agenda: warrants, minutes from the special meeting on the 19th, minutes from the regular meeting on the 19th, an appointment of Tim Ryder to the SAB, and ratify the retention of third-party consultants. Any questions on any of those items? Any motions on any of those items?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
Thank you, Macy.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Thank you.
And one piece of little business, I did let you know earlier, Macy, that Trustee Maris joined us at 6:06. With that, we have a Ned Food Pantry update. Tom, when you're ready.
Okay, this is listed as a Ned Food Pantry update, but what it really is something a little different. It's a statutory thing regarding the OTF funds that I need to deliver to you each year. But I'll give you a real quick overview of the pantry. We're doing well. We're at the 1-year anniversary of being in our new facility. We're serving better food than we've ever served before. And we're doing it with different sources of funding than we thought we were going to have this year. There's just a lot of Boulder County stuff that's dropped out, foundation money and grant money. So we've had to shift quite a bit. We're doing, over at the pantry, we're doing a lot of food rescue. So we're going down to Whole Foods and Sam's on Sundays and picking up what they've got. And there's been a lot of generosity out of this town, especially around fresh produce, growing gardens down in Boulder, 200 pounds of veg, Victory Gardens here in town, 15 pounds, St. Rita's, 50 some pounds of food. The Presbyterian Church is sending over 350 boxes of cereal this weekend. Even BNF with their reorientation has kicked in several thousand pounds of food. So we're scavenging. We're doing well. Financially, we're in good shape, and I think we're here for the long haul. But what I'm here to talk about is something different, and that's the Health and Human Services Fund that comes out of the OTF funding. Remember, a couple of years back, we did the occupancy tax and passed that. The deposits have been falling off pretty seriously with. I would have to read into this that some of our occupancy tax has come down considerably because the March deposit was $6,800. By August, it's down to about $3,500. So the bottom line is right now, we've got roughly, in what the fund does is 5 organizations, we're just one, 5 is Canyon Cares, ourselves, Teens Inc., and others come to us for something that's got to be pretty dire. Everything from mental health or physical health emergencies, about to be evicted. A lot of them are paid to Nederland in the form of water bills, people that wouldn't otherwise pay their water bills. So we're taking it from Ned and giving it right back to Ned. Car repairs and so on, but it's and utilities and so are among the hardest hit. The fund balance right now is at roughly 17 grand, but October's coming, and this we really the fourth quarter, late third and fourth quarter are when we really get hit hard. I think, you know, we dispersed last year 31,000. This year we've already in July we passed 20, and then it kind of goes dormant. But the cost of wood and the number of people who aren't going to be able to pay their heating bills is up, and I think that the need is closer to 40 grand a year. So if you do the math, I think we're going to go, you know, we're at $5.99 per disbursement. We're going to probably hit a wall in October where we're going to have to, number one, I think we'll have to slow it down, drop the amount. Number two, we're already starting to say, no, can't handle it. It's not dire enough. But I think at the current trajectory, just doing the basics, we'll probably go broke, or we will, yeah, we'll hit close to zero, I think, in November. So it's, I wanted to make you aware of it. I don't know that we've got a solution or we're going to even talk about it tonight. We had talked, you guys are going to be talking, I'm sure, about the leftover ARPA funds. This is one place, it's not for the pantry, but specifically for the Health and Human Services Fund. I think that some of it should go. So think about that as you're doing your budgeting. So overall, food pantries in decent shape. In terms of who we're seeing, we're serving now about 360 people a week in Nederland, in a town that's only 1,500 people. So there are a lot of them are, you know, working businesses in town. They're employed, but they don't have enough to put food on the table. And ironically, some of them are in the food business. But you know, the need is going up. Some of them are federal workers that were laid off in March with the first federal layoffs. We've gotten very tight on 2 things. Number one, residency, and number 2, campers, rules for campers. With the fire restrictions, we batten down the hatches on anything that has to be cooked outside for fire danger. We've had, you know, I think I read in the paper 3 unattended fires that were out there. So we're really, we're giving campers bags pretty thoughtfully, but being very careful about what we do there. So those 2 things. I want to make you aware of the need, put in an ask for the unspent ARPA funds and anything else that town might be able to help with. And then when you're doing your budgeting too, I think the pantry is funded from a source that we diverted once while I was sitting on your side of the table to put it into the sheriff's department, and Miranda asked that we change the ratio to fund the sheriff's department. I'm telling you, from a human services need, we're going to need to, we're asking at this point that, you know, we were told at the time it was going to be a one-time budget shift, but I would ask that when budget time comes around, you might see me again. That's all I got. I wanted to, it's up to you, parliamentarian, but we've got Stephen LaFavor is one, his organization, Teens Inc. is one of the 5. He's got a word or 2 to say, and you can do it under 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you can take the time. Can I ask you a couple of questions though?
Go right ahead.
Well, last year about this time, where did that fund sit? You're at 17,000.
Let me see. This time last year, we're at 17 now. We had 28 last year at this time.
And then those 360 people, are they about, like, are they more or less same people, or is it kind of changing faces?
No, it's different. In fact, there's a lot of people that are coming into the we're mixing apples and oranges now, but the people coming into the pantry, In some cases, I had to look, fortunately, we keep good enough records. I can see when they came in last. Many of them have been away for a while, and they're back, and they're not back for one hit. They're back every week.
Makes sense. And have you seen, like, with peak-to-peak housing, health and human services, like a drop off much in
Yeah,
county money, county resource?
huge drop off. And the reason is, I think we've tied, as a state, we tied our fund, the way we fund our state is tied to what we collect in federal taxes. So Colorado took a major hit. That's flowed down to the counties this quarter. There are more layoffs today. So like the person who's looked after harm reduction, she and her entire staff are gone, effective immediately. Mobility for all, almost everybody is taking a hit. And I think, we're at the end of the chain. So we weren't getting a tremendous amount from the county. So I'm working a lot on foundation money and things like that that are more dependable. And our fundraisers, when we roasted chilies at the farmers market, we did really well, but we're getting quite scrappy. And since the bank is now down in Boulder and I run the deposits down, I'm super conscious of where we're at all the time. And I think the pantry's in decent shape for now. But next year we'll see. And I'm going to flatline any county funding for next year because I don't expect to see it. But we've done some things that don't cost much, but we're bringing better food in than I think we've ever had. When people come in, it's a smorgasbord, especially of produce. And at a time when tariffs are hitting produce and throwing availability off, we're just super lucky to have what we've got, and our gardens are producing quite well. So it's a tale of two worlds. But it's hard telling people, no, we can't help you. I know we helped you before. And I think this is the point we're about to hit.
Thanks, Tom.
Mhm.
More questions for Tom?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the occupancy tax being down, is that, Macy, is that something like are we actually just having fewer short-term rental visits, or like, is there something different that's happening there that's dropping that fund?
In correlation to that, I would just want to ask a logistical question. These numbers are 2 months in the rears. Is that correct?
For the occupation tax payments.
When they get a distribution, is that 2 months in the rears? So in other words, they're getting,
The August payment, for instance.
yeah, the August payment is actually coming from, what would that be? Like May?
So
June, May.
the actual disbursement to them is handled by Rita, so I'm not sure like what tax quarters of mine are grouped into payouts for them.
Okay.
But yes, mine are collected quarterly, and an August payment, if it's coming right after, it would be June 30th. Would be dropped in August. August wouldn't be dropped until the end of September. So it'd be June 30th.
So it's not 2 months in the rears, like a lot of the taxing
maybe
is?
3 sometimes.
Maybe 3. Okay. So that's the only nuance I would ask, if whether or not it's in arrears, because if you're seeing the drop off, it's possibly because you haven't, August would have been like May or something like
Yeah.
that, when occupancy may have been lowest, because we spike in June, July, and August. So that's just a nuance that we should be conscious of. I don't know if it's true, but
But if it's
It
down,
sounded good.
yeah, but if it's down from last year, right, like that
Mhm.
was the occupancy tax fund that was down from 28 to 17 or something.
Yeah, it was down pretty substantially.
but was it just the occupancy tax, or was it just your overall top line fund?
That's for the Health and Human Services Fund. That's its only source, is the occupancy tax.
Okay, so the 28,000 that you were at last year was only from the occupancy tax,
Correct.
and then this year it's 17,000. And that is only from the occupancy tax
That's
as
correct.
well. It's not from any other sources of revenue.
Correct. That's
Okay.
the only
So-
place that money comes from.
And we changed, when did we change the STR rules, and when does that go, when did that go into effect? I mean, would that have
been, I think since 2022 that we implemented the new tax rate of $4 per room per home.
Okay, so that's
So
not,
it should
that's
have,
not
it
it.
should be, I wonder if maybe maybe you're, reporting a halfway point number.
Mhm.
If, you know, if it was dropped in June, if we're reflecting from the end of June, then that would make sense of like a halfway mark for the year.
But yeah, August to August shows us a substantial drop.
I will also say tourism across all of the United States is down, and particularly in our small and rural areas in Colorado, because less people from international visitation
Right,
are
and
coming.
that's what I was asking, like, is our STR visits down based on, you know, what we're seeing in disbursements?
Not that I can tell.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be quite normal in terms of collection and reporting. Normal as compared to how it has been for the past few years, but I'd be happy to look into it in more details if you'd like.
Maybe it's just, you know, we'll see what the next disbursement, if it reflects the summer surge but budget season is coming up.
Yeah, that's why I'm here. One final note on the pantry, we're in negotiations with Christian Vanek, who put us where we are now, about extending our lease and doing an option to buy it out at the end and stay right where we are. And I'm really hoping that we can pull that off. So far, we got an agreement in principle. And roughly, to put the food pantry is in perspective, it's around a $300,000 operation a year. So we're doing it almost completely with donated funds. And that's before you factor in all the food rescue and other things like that. So, but it's cash in, cash out around 300. We're, stability wise, we're doing quite well. We've got about a year in the bank and a small rainy day fund just in case.
Does it seem like that new location is it's just easier for people to get to?
People love it, especially many come on the bus.
Yeah.
We also, one of the things, we did two things transportation wise that helped. Ward has had problems feeding its people, and Rollinsville too. So we have a via bus that we added a fourth day. I found the county money to fund that. So it does 3 round trips on days that the pantry is open. And so we're getting a wider swath of people in, and it's a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's kind of heartbreaking to see some of the situations that some families are finding themselves in. It's been an eye opener for me.
More questions for Tom? Well, if not, thanks, Tom. We'll see you soon in budget season.
Yeah.
Come back and we'll make sure you know the right meetings. And Stephen, but yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you. And Stephen, if you'd want to add. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks again.
Oh, sorry about that. Now it's on. And you know, from Teens Inc. does a lot of like accesses the occupants, the fund for mental health often and or medical purposes. Just one young fellow, that 17-year-old that we had, who's in school and has had learning disabilities or has learning disabilities, been a student for over a year. And we got to a point through conversation and relationship with him and his mom that he should get his eyes checked out. And come to find out, he's dyslexic as well. But that between the support from the occupancy fund, it got him an eye test, got him diagnosed with dyslexia, and also got him glasses because we were able to leverage those funds. So in addition to kind of the immediate needs, I think it has definitely a few occasions with us really helped change the course of a young person's life by providing funds that would be challenging. We just don't have a fund like that to really help young people get support they need to put them on a better path. So it's an important fund, whatever this board's able to do to ensure that it's well funded. I know that it means a lot to the community for sure. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. Any questions for Stephen? Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Well, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it.
I have a clarifying question for John. John, this is great and all that we can talk about it at budget season, but we still have 25,000 in ARPA funds that haven't been spent this year, correct?
Yeah, that needs to come to you guys for a discussion item. It's dedicated for nonprofit support. And so that's kind
Right.
of what it's for.
Yeah. So 25,000 was allocated for this budget season for 2025. That has not. So even if we were to make a decision for next year's budget of still allocating money for that 25,000 still needs to be spent.
There's only one 25,000.
Right.
For ARPA rules, it needs to be dispersed by 2026. So we can do it this year. We could do it whenever works for you guys. We can put it on the agenda to discuss.
Okay. Okay. So it just has to be spent by 2020, not January 1 of 2026.
December 31st.
Of 2026.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question. Thanks. Any other questions? Sorry, questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. I know it was kind of asked of Macy, but I just want to clarify. Are remittances down compared to last year? Are we getting less? Are people renting less? Thus, we're getting less occupancy tax. Like, why is it like 10,000 less? Or are you seeing it's the same? I'm just curious.
I just generally collecting and everything seems to be the same and seems to be
That's
maintained.
strange.
I
That
can't
doesn't make any
speak to the
sense.
funds. That's more of a Rita question, like when they're dispersed and what quarters are included in the
But
disbursement.
as far as occupancy goes, the numbers are pretty steady and you're receiving the same amount of money. So at some point they will receive it then. We didn't change the percentage last year, did we, at budget season?
No.
That we got? No. So
So-
that is odd. Maybe it's gonna come later, so, it would be nice to let them know so they can plan. If everything's the same. If it's all the same, they're gonna get the money. It's just maybe hasn't been allocated yet.
Macy, how many active short-term rentals do we have right now?
Look into it off the top of my head, I want to say like 60 maybe.
Okay, so that's how many active we have right
I
now.
have to look into it. It might be less than that. I know our cap is 70 and we have wiggle room. I want to say maybe we have 10 to 12 openings. That would be 58 to 60.
Okay, John.
John?
We could bring a discussion item on this. If you give staff a little bit of time to research and get with Rita, we could put something on your agenda so you understand better.
That's a good idea.
Cool.
Good questions. I think if you guys take time to research and we'll put it on a agenda soon. Any other comments or questions on Health and Human Services update? Yeah, Tom.
I am hoping we'll see it within, actually, Cassie, we're talking next couple of weeks, probably. Yeah.
Thank you. That will move into action items. Our first, thanks, Tom. We'll move into action items. Our first action item is the donation policy.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah,
Mayor and
that was good.
trustees, at our last meeting, I had a aim for you and I was missing the policy for this.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
Mayor and trustees, at our last meeting, I had the aim for this, but was missing the policy, so I've included it in the staff report. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tanya, please.
It seems like, which is great, it's all, staff is gonna handle it internally. But if staff rejects a proposal that a person is very committed to do they have a right to appeal? I didn't see that in there.
I think what the intention was is like a new kind of project that's not in our plans would come to the Board of Trustees, but we can adjust that language.
Fine is that? I didn't see that. Everything I saw was staff direct, staff this, and so I didn't. Honestly, I could have missed it. So if you could read that line to me, that'd be awesome.
That was also one of my questions.
We can add that to it if it's. I thought I did, but
I mean, I could have missed
So
it. I
under
mean,
approvals, it has donations requiring Board of Trustees notification or approval. Under your purchasing policy, shall follow those requirements. All real property donations must be approved by the board.
let me see if I can find what. So, but not.
But
Go
not a
ahead.
formal-
Ask questions. I look for what I was looking for.
That's okay. But yeah, not a formal like workflow or for an appeal process.
I think what we were intending is that if a project is new or different, it could come to the Board of Trustees for a review.
Okay.
But it needs, that's kind of the thing is that those projects too, then I guess what we would need to do, we can work on that a little bit.
I think kind of going to that, what's going on? I feel like I'm too close to the speaker. I thought that at some point we discussed how, so under engineering professional review trigger, that's kind of what I thought we were talking about last time, or a kind of a category that would come to the board. But it just says that any project including features, structures, or design elements beyond the standard installation will require professional review. Were you contemplating that being the board, or is that engineering review?
I was thinking about engineering, but I think what we need to do is talk about what the trigger that you guys want for a
Yeah.
project to come to you, whether that's just an appeal or if there's certain kinds of projects that would come to you.
One of the other things I was noticing is that under the criteria, and sorry, I just moved off of it. Let me go back to it. It lists several things, right? But then it has another item stuck in between it that articulates treats all applicants equitably. And so my question was, under the evaluation, this is how we would evaluate a proposal that comes before us, correct? Like a donation. How is treats all applicants equitably and avoids favoritism? How would that be a criteria that you would give a score to, so to speak?
I think the intention is to make sure that projects that happen, that we're not giving access to town resources to like anyone over another. And there was a question about RFPs, like should there be an RFP-like process as we were
Sure.
kind of starting to develop this? And I think that that's where that came from, is trying to make sure that people have equal access to do work in town, but maybe that isn't stated the best way that we have it there.
Well, and it's almost like it's a value, and I
Yeah.
love that it's there. But if you are going through and you're evaluating a proposal, just my question is, how would you write that out as an evaluation criteria? Because the other ones like meets applicable laws, like we actually have laws, and you could turn those into like a scoring function if we decided to, right?
Right.
Aligns with adopted in town plans, very clear, got that. But how would you actually evaluate that it treats all applicants? And if it is, some process, that's great. It just seemed a little out of place right there.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Is my mic still on? There was one
Yes.
bullet point where it was, if complicated projects, oh, here it is, under volunteer project number 3, higher risk or complex volunteer projects that are not staff coordinated will be evaluated using the full checklist. My question is, who evaluates? And the checklist is what? The like, where's the actual checklist? Is it? I'm not seeing like something that says checklist. I'm seeing a lot of things that could be part of a checklist, but I would love to see the checklist.
It was intended to be those principles and the evaluation criteria. that
Okay,
is
okay,
there.
okay, great. So, but then they're in the evaluate that one's okay. So, but like complex projects like trail building, determine would engineering, I mean, not all trail building requires engineering. So I guess, so the who is staff or the who is the board?
Well, when we originally talked about this, we were talking about trying to keep it simple. So I
Yeah,
kept
no, I
it
like
as
that,
a
yeah.
staff approval unless there's something more complicated. And so I think what it is on a trail, it might be something like if there's floodplain work or if the structure is required or some kind of excavation
Right.
that could change the slope of a hillside or something like that, that would need
So,
that.
yeah. So so it would be staff that determines using the checklist for higher risk or complex volunteer. And then if it got denied, I'd just like to see that there is somewhere for that person to appeal to the board. I just don't see that anywhere.
Okay.
Because it just seems like most of this is going to be done administratively, which I think is good. And I just would like there to be an option for appeal if someone's like, I think you're misunderstanding. It's really not as complicated as you think, or whatever. Like a lot of times, maybe, yeah. I don't want to get too in details, but yeah.
Okay.
Other clarifying questions?
One of the other things I was looking for was, identifying, I don't know the best way to put this, but identifying conflicts of interests. I don't know like where that would be a thing, and I kind of leave it to you as you're evaluating these folks. Like, where would something like a conflict of interest pop up? I see under equity and fairness, like applying policy consistently to everyone, and that totally makes sense. What I'm wondering is if, as a part of your criteria, to identify if there is potential conflicts of interest that would then come to us if it ever had to come to the board for, some sort of decision. And it's really just because in the past, whether it's board members or other people, like the conflict of interest piece has come up more often than you would like. And so it's just one of those things. As I was reading it, I was like, where would something like that fit in? And I don't know if it does, but raising as a question.
We could bring that in where the equity line, I think that's really what we were thinking about on the equity line. So maybe we can bring these modifications back to you.
Yeah, because it identifies preferential treatment there, but then it's like, I think preferential treatment is separate in my head from like identify for us if there is a potential conflict of interest that you want us as your board to be aware of, right? And just so that we just have a lot of more of those data points.
So maybe we could add a conflict of interest statement, some kind of appeal process, and then clean up the language in the criteria a bit around on that, the bullet about the equity.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you guys would like to see in this policy or different?
Just in the vein of trying to keep things simple, just reading through the approval section, which I think is kind of like the crux of it, right? Like, when do you make decisions and when do they have to come to the board, or what triggers coming to the board? It feels like I might be reading it incorrectly, but it feels like 1 and 2 are kind of the same. And then number 3 basically just says like the opposite of number 1. And then number 5 talks about estimated fair market value, which is used to determine the value of the donation. Like, they all just feel kind of like almost the same. And I just wonder if there's a way to be a little more concise, instead of kind of repeating the same thing, but not quite. Does that make sense?
Yes.
More questions? I guess I had one, someone asked it, maybe I just didn't quite hear the answer as well as I should have, but will there be some kind of like more or less checklist or more or less, in the evaluation, like some kind of straightforward way to sort all these details out, all these parameters out, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're
Is that helpful or more complicated? I mean, it seems like it helps standardize a system or a process, but what's your
yeah.
thoughts?
Are you thinking more specifically about like a document we would save that kind of has these criteria listed and whether or not it meets it, or something dialing those evaluation points in a little bit clearer?
Well, I'm thinking about dialing in those points clearer in a way that your staff could comment or determine or pick, where that effort lands on this, like, do these people have the skills to do this? I mean, you go through each one. I'm not gonna look at it, but like, I mean, meets applicable laws, codes and safety, that's kind of a checkbox, or you might want to be more granular, if, depending on the types of codes, but some things are more straightforward. Other things might be more, anything that's going to be abstract or subjective, that like finding a way to make it less so, or at least a place where people could write their reasons,
We could build an application that would,
Yeah,
an example.
kind of like, I think of like some of the applications that we see, like there's questions or there's elements and then there's answers.
Okay. We could put something attached to this that would show what that might look like with those.
And maybe just replacing the word checklist with the evaluation points listed above, just so that we're
Sure.
clear.
Yeah.
Sorry, I want to make sure that I'm not getting confused, but an application sounds different from evaluation criteria. And I just want to make sure I've got it straight in my head. So did you have anything?
I actually don't have a preference like that. I kind of even said like what makes more sense from a staffing perspective. I mean, and if you need time to answer this, feel free to say that and take the time you need. Just maybe think about what's the best way for staff to effectively evaluate in kind of a transparent and kind of, I'm not gonna say equitable, but like kind of a objective way.
Or possibly could we even turn the evaluation points into like questions, and then it is a little bit more of a checklist?
Yeah,
Like, does this meet all applicable laws, codes, and safety standards? Does this align with town adopted policies or plans? And then could we even kind of fold in the whole engineering section into that? Like, does this project require additional professional review? Does it include structures, features, or design elements beyond the standard installation? I just want, like, just to make things even more simple for you guys, that it's just a list of questions that you go through when we get these proposed projects or proposed donations, rather than, I just worry about these different sections, and like different things that trigger different things might just be hard to implement.
I think that's why we had included the documentation section with the donation acceptance form, the gift agreement, and the professional services agreement that would detail those criteria. I think from an administration capacity, those questions are clear. I think the question would be, for us, I think this is executable for what we need. It's just a matter of documentation for the process and for what the board might need. What I was trying to do is make sure that admin staff has ability to do admin work, and that things that need to be policy questions come to the board.
Mm-hmm. So in that regard, I would encourage you that if this is sufficient for your administrative pieces, then that's great. The only thing I can think of is if for some reason it did come before the board, understanding how that decision was made. And perhaps that's where Trustee Maris is saying like, these would be questions that we'd ask of the applicant, but then what is your evaluation on the back end of that? Just in case for transparency of process and everything.
I think we can do both. I think we
Okay.
can achieve them. And so what I might ask, I think we can bring this back one more time and we can bring forward what that might look like for you. And then we can clear up some of the language here and make it a little bit more simple. But I think what I'm really hearing is that you want to make sure that there's a record and that it's easy to understand how that process works for somebody who wanted to do it. And I think we had some direction at the first time. We didn't want to make this onerous where people don't want to do the work. So we're trying to keep
100%.
it as simple as possible. But I think we just need to dial it in a little bit more.
Yep. Well, just, yeah, I'd say still anchoring on simplicity is the right thing.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You don't want to make it so hard that no one's going to be like, I'm here volunteering. Why do I have to spend an hour on an application? Like,
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, let's if anybody who's willing to donate to the town, like let's be as gracious as possible.
One thing we do need to think about is unintended consequences of a donation, because there is an ongoing maintenance or ongoing things that may happen with a donation, and we just need to make sure that we're thinking about the long-term piece of that too. But I think that ultimately that's just a matter of a check on that checklist.
And
Yeah.
then- And then the reasoning, I want to know 3 years from now or whatever, not that long, but I want to know why that was a decision, like because of staff capacity. Here's where it can become a thing for the board, is the board thinks it's a great idea and that we should move forward with it, but there in no way, shape or form do we have capacity for it. And it has unintended consequences that, the board just doesn't want to face. And so the reasoning why for your decision is what's important for me.
Nicole, do you feel like that's something that we could give direction enough to pass this with direction to make that change, or do we feel like we need to see another revision?
Basically, some of the other things that was articulated was I think that we still need to see the language around appeal and what that looks like. I don't know that I would feel comfortable just pushing through, because we may look at it and it's like, you know what, this doesn't really make sense, actually. Just kidding, strike.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think we can get a final version of this to you by your next meeting, or at least a final revision for your review
Cool.
with that language. And we'll also include as an attachment what a process might look like.
Yeah.
So we'll go to public comment here in a minute. One thing I'd say is, we don't want to make it complicated for the donor per se, but like some kind of checklist, more or less. Maybe it is more of an approval checklist than an application, and where staff really does the not quick, but the effective and concise as can be as needed, but as long as needed. Evaluation and making sure things are evaluated, because later on someone goes to donate and maybe they have a different way of looking at how something's been done, and they're going to say, well, could they do it, or why can't we, or why did they get to do it that way? And we have to do it a different way. You have documentation.
I think too, even just having a simplified, like written policy helps kind of ground people as well. And so I know that you said that you would do this, John, but I think just as concise as we can be in this, because if people even see, a 3 or 4 page policy, that might already deter them. But, I see engineering professional review trigger section. So you've got a whole section dedicated to that. But then we've got the use and design determination. And then you talk about whether professional or engineering review is required. So if we could condense that into one set, I just feel like there's some areas where you might be able to condense a little bit more.
Okay, we can do that.
Thanks for hearing this. Sorry,
Thank you
this is,
for-
you probably
No.
think this was going to be a simple thing we did zip through
I'm
today.
glad- It's important to get this right, and we do want people to be able to donate and this to work effectively in the future. So thank you guys for spending the time on it.
Yeah, sorry, it might be more work now, but hopefully less later. With that, we'll go to public comment. Anything, Jim? Any comments on this? Folks online, any comments on the donation policy discussion? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board and just, I think, where we're talking just a minute ago is that we probably aren't going to move anything, well, we're not going to move anything to action, I don't believe tonight, and we are going to request that you, it is an action item, so we have to move to continue. Well, is it, okay, so I'd like to make a move to continue, but when, what time, how much time do you need?
I think we can have this to you by the next meeting. No
Is that-
problem.
Is that, I mean, you're busy, so is that enough time?
I think so. I think the work remaining is just kind of tweaking and adding some language. So I think we can definitely do
So it's
that.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I would, is there more discussion maybe before we make a move or motion? I move to continue this action item until the September 16th meeting, so town staff has time to make some of these updates.
Second.
Casey?
Trustee Miller,
Yep.
trustee Ty,
Yep.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
and trustee Maris,
Yes.
and trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that. With that, we'll move to our next action item, the procurement policy.
Mayor and board, we at our last meeting discussed updating our procurement policy for a couple of reasons. One, to expand the thresholds that we are able to, our approval authority as the town manager and the department heads. And two, to align ourselves to the federal procurement requirements for federal grants. I guess the other really big reason for doing this is that it also aligns us to the Colorado digital accessibility standards that are required in procurement. Before you tonight, you have the ordinance that would create this purchasing authority and the resolution regarding it as well. If you have any questions for us, we're happy to answer.
We'll move to clarifying questions.
I'll go ahead and go. In the procurement policy, it had identified that it wouldn't be like a subscription for a year would be the maximum. So at this point, one of my questions was, do we have any multi-year deals where that would currently be a problem?
I don't think so. Most of our agreements have a clause that allows us to, and the auto renews the agreement if we don't, and that has how it's been handled in the past. But I don't think, Jennifer, there's anything else. That's how we handle most of those.
The subscription language.
Sorry. Oh, I didn't write it down. It is, let me find it for you. So it is under D, page 56 of the packet. The subscriptions where usual business practices require payment in advance, but the term of any subscription shall not exceed 1 year. And so I wasn't sure if like we had existing multi-year deals that would make this.
Well, that's and payment in advance. So I'm not sure what.
Yeah, so for like, I'm thinking of, software or IT, if any of those have been, like, we get a discount, right? Because they're multi-year deals.
I don't think we have any multi-year deals right now, but I will check and make sure. But usually the ones that we do have that can do that, they're all kind of set to auto renew. And that is something that we go through a legal process now when we bring a new contract forward, but I'll make sure there's no older ones.
Okay, yeah, that's the only thing that was sort of flagged for me in this. Otherwise, I would say I like what I see.
More clarifying questions? Hearing none, we'll go to public comment. Do you have any public comments? Okay. Folks online, any public comments on the procurement policy? Thanks, everyone. Well, with that, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion. Motions are on page, I should have waited till I got there. Motions. I'll find it. I'm on a different page right now. Thank you. On page 40.
I know we talked about this before and had some edits and you guys came back to us. It looks good to me.
Thank you for giving your reasoning.
Anybody else have thoughts before I go to a motion?
Go for it.
Do it.
All right. I move to approve ordinance 880 amending section 4-191 of the Netherlands Municipal Code relating to purchasing authority.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Macy?
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yep.
trustee Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Mayor Billy.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was a lot easier than the last one, huh, John? Thank you.
There's one more. Yeah, that was for the ordinance. And then there's
Thank you.
motion to approve the
Resolution.
resolution.
Is that on that same old?
I move to approve resolution 2025-20 approving the town's purchasing policy.
Second.
Motion and a second. Macy?
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
trustee Maris,
Oh.
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yep.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
trustee Corvalon,
I knew we
Yes.
can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. With that, we've moved through our action items of the evening and we are into discussion item. First one being the Masters of Environment Capstone Program proposal. Cass?
Thanks. So this was something that I brought at the last BOT meeting. But just as a reminder, the University of Colorado's Masters of the Environment Capstone Project program essentially has graduate students in the Masters of Environment program partner with organizations to promote sustainability-oriented projects. And the students serve essentially as consultants, work on that project, and then produce deliverables based on what the partner is asking for. Specifically, they can major in, or they can focus in urban resiliency and sustainability. And there are quite a few students in this focus area for MENV, so that definitely indicates student interest in the topic. So last time, I asked if the BOT would be interested in applying for this program for a sustainability and resiliency plan, and was directed to talk to the Sustainability Advisory Board and figure out what kinds of priorities and objectives they recommend we focus on for that kind of plan. And bringing this to SAB, they have some recommendations that I included in this aim. The main thing being that they recommended focusing just on resiliency rather than sustainability and resiliency. And this is for kind of a few reasons. The one being that this project is only a year long, and a lot of it involves, the students getting to know the town, doing community engagement, talking with people, and learning a lot, but also not as much time for actually putting together the plan itself. And so focusing on something like just resiliency makes a little bit more sense in terms of the limited time that they have to produce these deliverables for us. Another aspect of that is that this resiliency plan could be used later on in conjunction with the comprehensive plan, with more strategic planning that you do. And you could create like a full sustainability, resiliency, climate action plan, which was something that the sustainability board kind of all talked about finding very valuable, but probably too big of a project for this group of graduate students. The other factor being the federal administration and some of the limitations they've put on terminology that can be used and the funding that is allowed to be given out based on, you know, other things that you as a jurisdiction are doing. So resiliency is something that seems to resonate kind of across political boundaries, and is very focused on, you know, human life, but also we, you know, want to respect and value the environment as well and non-human life. That was something that was brought up in the SAB meeting, just making sure that, you know, we're considering the environment that we are coexisting in. Another item that was brought up by co-chair of the Sustainability Board, Melody Baumhover, was to prioritize planning and zoning for greater resiliency. So there are specific technique or specific approaches that you can use to really focus on resiliency in planning and zoning. And so she recommended having the students look more into that, the feasibility and sustainability of affordable housing, solar installations, different land use types, and different zoning models as well. Another suggestion was to focus on supporting a circular economy in Nederland and the resiliency that that brings with having local support systems and resources that are up here and not things that we have to go down to Boulder or elsewhere for. Erica Thorley, another SAB member, recommended that the plan consider resiliency to various hazards that we face as a community. Wildfire, flooding, extreme heat, and drought are a few of those things, and they affect the built environment as well as human life and wildlife. And then transportation resiliency was also brought up as a focus area. So a lot of different ideas were kind of thrown out there. What I took from that conversation was that there are a lot of values that we have as a community. And I think that the Sustainability Board did a good job representing a lot of those values that we would want in a resiliency plan. And I also think that part of the project that the students would be working on would be figuring out how those values should be shaped into actual strategies that we can work on and implement to make our town more resilient. So a lot of that will be the community engagement, talking with the Sustainability Board, talking with you all, and then community members. Yeah. So I have a few questions for you to consider based on those recommendations. And just as a reminder, the proposal is due September 26th. So I would bring a proposal on the 16th of September to you all to vote on, and then also provide more feedback. Before bringing it to you on the 16th, I will send it to the basically the manager for the program and just get some initial feedback and make sure that it seems like something the students would be interested in before bringing it to you. And then we would still be in kind of like a waiting phase of talking with students and figuring out if they want to choose our project and work on our project. And we would hear in December if it is selected. And then it would start at the end of February in 2026. That would be when they begin. So the questions that I have are based on SAB's recommendations. Which priorities and outcomes does the board wish to prioritize for a resiliency plan for the town if we focus on resiliency? Should I move forward with drafting a project proposal for this program? And also, would you like to consider providing a stipend for the capstone students, and how would you like to move forward with that? And I can add a little bit more context to the stipend aspect. It is not a requirement. I was told that it does not impact the competitiveness because of your project proposal, because they actually have funding that they can give their students if like their partner does not provide any. If you do want to find the funds to provide students with a stipend, the average stipend that was provided was $2,400 per student last year. The stipend that the SAB recommends is between $1,500 and $2,000. And that would be a commitment of, somewhere between 4,500 to 6,000 if we had 3 students working on our project. So yeah, do you have any questions?
Now go in budget for 2026. That last thing it just said. Stipend can always be added on after submitting the application if we want to wait till 2026 for budget. Does that stipend when does that usually get, say we were to choose to do it, when does it usually get paid out?
That's a good question, but it likely wouldn't be until probably at least February when they start working on our project. I could see that being like we might owe that to CU and then they distribute it across the course of their term working on our project.
Thanks. More clarifying questions?
I do. This is Tanya. With the project, with the resiliency, what kind of deliverable are you like expecting out of this?
Yeah, that's a good
Is
question.
this paper? Is it just like more research, more reports, or is there a concrete action plan, or what?
Yeah, so what I think what ideally we would ask for would be a plan that has actionable strategies, things that we can track, especially with metrics, to figure out if we are actually achieving the goals that we want. Part of drafting this plan will be determining like what those goals are and how to measure them. But I think the idea is that we come up with actual strategies for implementation. So not as much the research side of things and more action oriented.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. Thanks, Cass. More questions?
Okay, and just to be clear, because it says the plan could be used to develop a sustainability, resiliency, climate action plan at a later date. But the resiliency plan is something a capstone team would be able to complete within their limited time. And then the suggestions below that were in relation to a resiliency plan, a little bit more specific. Yeah. I guess my question is, did the SAB review our comprehensive plan and bounce the ideas off of that?
I think they had it in mind based on their previous review of the comprehensive plan, but I wouldn't say that we were directly referencing parts of the comprehensive plan. I know that if the students were to create a resiliency plan, they would be reviewing all of those, guiding documents that we have.
Yeah, and I guess that's we can get into that after, when we do discussion, but okay, so comprehensive plan wasn't directly like the priorities that are listed out in the comprehensive plan, those weren't directly referenced in creating these ideas.
I would say not in the conversation.
Okay, thanks.
More clarifying questions before we go to public comment? Okay, we'll go public comment. There's no one in the room. So if anyone online has a comment on this capstone project discussion item, now's the time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hey Melody.
All right, Melody Baumhover, Netherland resident, co-chair of the Sustainability Advisory Board. Just to echo what Cass is saying, I think it's been over a decade since we had a sustainability action plan. So as a board, we were kind of looking at, okay, what are our first steps towards looking at what a sustainability action plan would look like for us moving forward a decade later. And so this topic of resiliency was kind of one piece of that broader plan. And to answer your question, Nicole, we didn't specifically reference the comprehensive plan at the meeting, no.
Thanks, Melody.
Thanks, Melody. Any other public comments? If not, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Nods.
This is Tanya. I'm all for pursuing the resiliency capstone project and assessing the stipend during our budget discussions.
Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah, I feel like I had all my questions on this answered last time, and yeah, I'm all for it, so.
Agreed, all for it. But Cass, do you need more direction about like what to prioritize, like regarding your like first question?
Yeah, I think based on the feedback that they provided, and some of those specific items like the planning and zoning, the hazards and circular economy, like do those things resonate with you all? Or is there any part of that like you're more concerned about or more excited about or have, other feelings and thoughts? Yes.
I'm glad you brought up the comprehensive plan, Nicole, because honestly, I hadn't really thought about it. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, there's a whole page about resiliency. So what worried me a little bit looking at these suggestions was affordable housing. We have the affordable housing study, the transportation resiliency, we have the multimodal transportation plan. So I guess it's not so much a worry as much as I just want to make sure that whatever we're doing isn't redundant and builds on whatever we've done before and can kind of add to it. So just making sure that obviously there's always room for adding and there's always room for getting more measurables and deliverables and a real action plan. But I just want to be really clear that whatever we kind of direct them to do and whatever we prioritize, if they could really dive deep into the plans that we have, including comp plan, transportation plan, affordable housing plan, and then trying to kind of build off of those. But I do think, I mean, obviously our affordable housing has always been a number one priority. Yeah. I think economic resiliency is another big thing that every budget season is something that's comes up. So I would love to see more about economic resiliency and how to build on that. But really all of those things have been priorities.
Yeah, and I would add in the fear of, because Trustee Corvalon made a comment of, is this just another thing? And Trustee Maris rightly saying, like, not making sure it's duplicative. I would love for SAB to go directly to the comprehensive plan and also bounce it off some of the ideas that Town Manager Kane has already listed today in the packet for strategic planning. And this, our discussion later today may give you a little bit more insight as to what that one thing is. My fear is also that resiliency is tackled as like a big thing instead of something very focused and well scoped. So, Erica's suggestion around wildfire mitigation actually is in the comprehensive plan and was addressed there. And you'll see wildfire mitigation is also on the list of things that Town Manager Kane has identified. So that's where I would ask the board to triangulate those data points and to, I've said it like 3 times. Tierney told me I'd say data points a lot, but anyway, but to triangulate those things, because that's going to give you a really great clue as to the probably the thing that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Because I would very much like to see that when that comes wait, would this come before us as a approval?
The proposal will come at the next meeting on the 16th.
Oh yeah, sorry. Then yeah, I would really like to see a very specific, well-scoped project that fits with our greater overall goals.
With financial implications, like where we can go to for grants. I mean, funding is always going to be an issue for whatever like proposed action plans we have. So having students do research about where we can go to for grants, where we might be able to get money, I think that's kind of legwork that would be incredible to have them to do.
Yeah, I can definitely include that.
Yeah, it says right in the middle, right before Melody's name here in that one paragraph on page 67, it says, second half of that sentence is, and it should provide strategies. So maybe that's where you're talking specific targeted strategies based, the town could take action on in the near term that align with the resiliency framework of the current comprehensive plan. So using all these plans to kind of zero in on, these are the types of action items we need, like more specific information on next steps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really what I'm interested in is how to go about doing a lot of these things and how to achieve like these goals and strategies that we have in the comprehensive plan, and like what is that next step, and so like how do we take that action. I think in my head that's what the final deliverable will be, is like things that we can get started on and like kind of give us a head start, if that resonates with you all.
So, the question before the board on page 69, which priorities and outcomes does the board wish to prioritize for these plans? Anything else to add to this question or answers or? And then the second one, should you move forward with drafting a project proposal for this Sea Boulder Masters of Environment Capstone Program? Do we have nods? And then would the board like to consider providing a stipend for the capstone students? And how would you like to move forward with that? We are by coincidence coming into budget season, so I think that could be discussed during that time, since we don't pay out the money, like it says in the text somewhere. That very thing I just said, but I think you just said February-ish, 26 when we pay it out.
I think that would be the earliest.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, clarifying question there. How was this done in the past? It came actually out of BOT. It wasn't SAP funded.
That might be a good question for Melody, actually, is I'm not sure if it was funded the last time we worked with CU. Boulder.
Yeah, Melody, are you able to?
Yeah. So last time it was funded through, I believe, BOT discretionary funds. It was $1,500 per student, and we paid that out based on the time that they worked. So it was every, 2 weeks or every month or something like that we paid them out.
Okay. And so the funds that are going towards paying like the sustainability coordinator, there was no other additional funds that are pulling from, I'm forgetting from town. We have funds that are going in and paying for the sustainability core. There's nothing extra in there.
No, but what I was thinking is that in the budget process, we can see where we're landing.
Yeah.
There are some difficult decisions you need to make during this budget process. But it's possible that this is not a very large amount of money. So I'm thinking that we may be able to identify a way to do this. But that's the nice thing about it is if we can hold that decision as we kind of go through the budget process, then we can just kind of earmark this for that conversation.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So I guess moving forward would really be that particular question happens during budget season and you don't have to really wait on it. Doesn't seem with numbers, questions 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's not necessary to like even put a stipend on the application.
Yeah, that's what I read farther up. Yeah, which is great.
However, isn't it also correct that those are typically selected more if there is a stipend? I feel like those were conversations that I had on SAB.
The conversation that I had with Alice, who runs the program, was that it does not change the competitiveness because the CU Boulder, like the MENV program has their own funds that they would pay their students to do a project that was like not funded by the partner. So they would still get funding. They would still get paid if the partner was unable to provide any funds. So basically they don't want to disincentivize us from applying.
I see. Okay, so they would do the stipend instead of having us do the stipend.
That's what I was told. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I feel like that. Okay, cool, great.
You have what you need?
Yeah, I think I do enough for the proposal and then bring that back to you all. So
Thanks, Cass. Good
Yeah.
presentation. Appreciate it.
also the next one.
Welcome back. Hey,
Yeah.
Cass. The next one, discussion item is the Boulder County Circular Economy funding options.
So with this one, this is a fund or a funding opportunity that becomes available every year. The current amount that they have available is $50,000 for all projects. We can request between 1,000 and 30,000 for a project, and no matching funds are required. The timeline is kind of similar to the other one in that the application is due September 30th. So I would also be bringing back a full application to you all at the next BOT meeting to vote on. And then awards would be announced in December. And then we would expect to see that funding in March of 2026. And then all funds and projects need to be completed by December 2026. So it's less than a year in terms of like how long those funds are available for. But typically the projects that are submitted to this funding opportunity are smaller projects because the amount that you can request is fairly low compared to other grants. So the Zero Waste Subcommittee and the Sustainability Advisory Board both have been having discussions about what we could potentially apply for if we wanted to pursue this funding opportunity. I brought the 3 options that the Zero Waste Subcommittee had come up with to the Sustainability Board, and they, discussed, provided feedback on those 3 options. And the attached document has some more details for those projects, and then also the kind of pros and cons that were presented by the Sustainability Board. So the 3 projects are the countertop food waste collection bins, which has the goal of encouraging local compost participation. So we have the new in-vessel composting unit up at the transfer station, and the idea is to get more participation by people who do not realize that it's there or don't really know how to, like, what to put in compost, or really how that process works. If there's like some kind of barrier to entry there, whether it's awareness, education, whatever it is. So the idea is fairly simple. We would purchase about 100 food scrap collection bins. That number can change if you would like. And then we would have, you know, labels and then instruction cards that go with that, as well as outreach materials. We would try and partner with the school, as well as potentially Teens Inc. I've not talked to either of those groups, so these are just kind of ideas that I would follow up on if this is chosen. And as well as the farmers market, and just having like a booth there to give out these collection bins to residents. And a criteria for this grant is that the people benefiting from it have to be within Boulder County, so we can provide these bins to town of Nederland residents, as well as residents of Boulder County that live in the area. Since a lot of people use the Nederland transfer station that don't necessarily live in town. There's some pros and cons to this. Helping residents, you know, by educating them on what composting is and that you can do it in the mountains, would just bring more awareness, and we would get more participation with that composting unit. A smaller project like this might also be more competitive for actually getting funding from Boulder County. We could also work with the school district to essentially bring these bins to students and hopefully create a ripple effect through those students by having them bring them to their parents and be like, hey, this is a really cool program I learned about composting in school. We can do it right here. So, you know, using the students to make positive behavior change. Some of the drawbacks for this is that it's seen as low impact per dollar, just because we're only, you know, distributing maybe 100 bins total, and the bins themselves are, you know, fairly expensive depending on, you know, how fancy you want to get. But like compared to maybe some of the other options here, it's not going to create as large of an effect in behavior change. There's also concerns about like just giving away the bins and not really knowing if people are going to be using them or not. And also just previous conversation amongst SAB members has been that you know, people can buy compost bins, they're not that expensive, so that's not like a huge barrier to entry. But in my opinion, it's more the like reaching a hand out and telling them this is something that you can do, and bringing that awareness to them that makes this project more appealing. Another option is the Community and Municipal Waste Diversion Initiative and Data Study. So this one involves purchasing equipment, so 3-stream and 2-stream waste stations, so recycling, compost, trash, or just recycling and trash, for municipal buildings, the community center, and then also public events, just to bring more uniformity across the bins that we have. And so that aligns with also what EcoCycle and Boulder County are accepting at their facilities. We would combine this with a data study. So in addition to the equipment of the bins and the bags, we would also purchase scales, tubs, potentially software for doing audits of waste streams. So that would involve like a few times throughout this project, someone, whether it be myself or a consultant, actually going to the different buildings and the events and tracking how much waste in each stream is, how much waste there is in each stream. And then having that more granular data rather than just what we know from the Nederland transfer station and like more aggregate data. Having the granular data would help us inform us like where we should focus our efforts and say like, oh, the contamination rate at events is super high and a lot of this could have been recycled, but it wasn't. Okay, we need to focus more on events, for example. There could be an impact there. And that's, yeah, just an example. The feedback from SAB on this was that it had the strongest support overall. The zero waste subcommittee also leaned toward this option and had the strongest support of that, mostly because just having better data on these waste streams is going to inform more like clear actions for actually improving our waste sorting and decreasing our contamination. The infrastructure that we would be purchasing for uniformity across municipal buildings would be a lasting thing that, you know, it would just be a lot easier for people if they see the same bins across town to like associate, you know, what actually can be recycled rather than having, you know, different signage, different bins and not really knowing what goes where. One downside of this is that I have not received an answer if the data study would be a competitive component for this grant. I will say that the infrastructure side of it is something that is listed specifically in the grant document. So they say we will fund new like equipment and infrastructure for municipal buildings. So that is directly something that they have called out. Budgeting is more uncertain for this because I'm not sure how much a consultant or a contractor would cost to hire to do audits if I wasn't conducting them. And then, you know, it requires a bit more like staff and contractor time and management, especially for like events and trying to do waste audits at events. The third option is kind of a component of the second option. It's looking specifically at zero waste at events and purchasing portable waste stations that can be essentially given to event organizers for their, you know, actual event for the however long their event goes for. And then we would also work to recruit staff to, not town staff, but like we would recruit people to work those events and monitor the waste stations. And that way we would have kind of like education component of talking to people when they're actually going to throw their, you know, trash recycling out, and then also reducing contamination and kind of similarly like having observations of how much waste is generated. These numbers on here can change. I was talking with someone from Cloud City Conservation Center, which is a nonprofit in Leadville that does this exact thing. They hire people to monitor waste stations for events in Leadville, and then they have a compost facility that they bring their compost to. And so they have been doing this for a bit and have found really great success with the program. And the amount that they charge or that they pay, sorry, the amount that they pay is $22 an hour for their staff. So the idea behind this would be to, you know, partner with EcoCycle for training and also making that uniform signage, and then having greater participation in recycling and composting. The downsides to this is that it would be an ongoing cost after the program ends. And that means we need some kind of like form of funding that is more sustainable for it. One idea is the bag fee funds. Based on how much we've collected so far, it's still hard to say like how much we would be getting per year, but it's likely not enough to pay staff at the $20 an hour rate that I had inserted there. So that fund alone, the paper bag fee fund, is not necessarily going to be enough to sustain hiring staff for the events. It's difficult to recruit and retain people for this type of work because it's really not glamorous work. digging through trash and talking to people about trash. And it would demand a lot of staff time to organize, train, and manage that type of program in the summer. So my recommendation, based on those three options in the SAB discussion and the Zero Waste Subcommittee's recommendation, is that we pursue option number 2 if we would like to apply for this grant, which is to collect and analyze waste stream data and then also purchase new waste stations for municipal buildings and town events. I will reach out to Boulder County staff and just check with them that this would be a competitive application. If they do not recommend that, then I would suggest pursuing option 1 because it seems like it would be easier to implement in terms of the amount of time required. It would still have some impact with an actual resource that we already have, the composting unit. And really the downside for option 3 is like the not having a sustainable source of funding for that staff, even though we have seen that having people at the stations, at the waste stations, does change behavior and reduce contamination like above everything else. So the next steps, again, this is due September 30th, so it's kind of short timeline. But if you do want me to pursue this application, I would bring it to you on the 16th for feedback and as an action item. And yeah, and then we would hear back in December. So my questions are, if you do you have any concerns about pursuing this funding opportunity? And then which option do you recommend that I proceed with for writing an application for this opportunity?
Thanks, Kat.
I have a question. Sorry.
Go for it.
About option 1. You're just providing them like the receptacle to put the compost in?
Yeah,
it's not a compost bin. It's not like where they put in their yard and creates compost.
Yeah, it's just to collect the food scraps essentially.
To me, I mean, I just use a bucket, so I'm not really sure. Like, what do these things look like? Is there an example? Like, I could Google it real quick. I'm just like super confused about it because I'm like, I use a bucket. I would love a compost bin like this bear proof, and I can use my yard. That sounds pretty good.
So I think the idea would be to tailor them so that it makes sense for the in-vessel composting unit, because you can only put in 3 to 5 gallon compost bags. So
not allowed the bags anymore.
They're not allowing any bags anymore.
No, that you can. You can.
You can still do you can still put in the compostable bags.
He told me not to. He said the green bags, no more.
Well, they did say that at one point, but
like 2 months ago.
I was working on the compost machine myself, and there's
Okay.
bags all
So we're
around.
back to bags. Okay, good to
Back to
know.
bags.
Yeah, it has been a confusing process, definitely. I think one of the main things that we would one of the main features we would look for is a composting bin that has some kind of filter just for odors, because we would want people to put these in their kitchens where it's accessible for like putting food scraps if you're making dinner, and then bring that straight to the compost unit, and not necessarily expecting them to keep it outside, because we don't know if people have bear-proof containers or sheds to keep it in. So I think we would just have the smaller countertop size and have some kind of scent blocker. They make different filters.
They make some, like the one I have has a charcoal. It's like a foam charcoal filter in the top of it. I can't smell a thing.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Okay, that's good. And then my other question was, have you guys done any, I know it's not on your list, so I'm sure you've talked about it and just couldn't come up with a solution, but how to handle the restaurants in town. And I feel like I'm not blaming anybody. I just feel like they probably have the most food waste given every night, like just so much food being cooked and just tossed out. Has there been any ideas on how to help the restaurants compost?
Yeah. So I've heard that a few restaurants are composting.
Sure.
One being New Moon, I believe, brings their food scraps to the transfer station. That's what Billy at the transfer station told me. And yeah, I do have a survey that I will be bringing to the restaurants. The delay on that process is really because I've been trying to work with a local group that is interested in composting with restaurants and using that compost to have like a local garden and grow food that can then be used in restaurants again. So it's kind of like a very, very circular economy concept. And so I'm trying to work with them, and there has just been kind of delay in communication. Summer's a busy time for people.
Right.
But that is a project that I am looking into more.
I like that. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya. Other clarifying questions?
I mean, you're touching on this all the way through here of, how to deal with contamination and and that's, I know it's a huge issue. Like you said, having people there, it helps. I know that like some places have like actually resorted to, you don't throw anything away, right? Like you just put your tray or trash on a table and somebody else sorts it, right?
Eldora.
Yeah, Eldora, A-Base, and most of the ski areas are doing that now because it just, people just doesn't really, they just throw stuff wherever. And so one being like, do we have enough data on like how much contamination we sort of have in the current recycling and compost streams? Like, I mean, I know one of the things is to do a study to get the data, but like, do we have anything kind of as a benchmark right now?
Yeah, so what I was told from Boulder County is that the kind of baseline contamination rate for all of Boulder County is 12% contamination.
For like across compost recycling, the
Yes.
of
And
all
so,
everything.
and that was a very like guesstimate number. It wasn't based on super granular data. And so I think that is a big reason why we want to do a data study, is just to figure out what our actual contamination looks like.
Right. Because it does seem like especially in some of the streams, like the compost, like you get contamination there, it's just kind of like makes the whole thing useless, like getting up some plastic bags and so I guess my feeling on this would be targeting either strategies that are really targeted at reducing the contamination and like household composting, like like already they've had to say you can't, no more paper towels or whatever because people just can't differentiate what's what. And so it seems like restaurants, I think, are a better example. Like they know they've got a whole huge tray of food and it's not full of twist ties. Like they're just like it's cleaner and probably pound for pound more effective than helping people get kitchen compost bins. So obviously I think the third option is ideal if we could, but unless there's a way we can figure out how to fund that. Is that something that we could do based on targeting specific events? So instead of trying to say, okay, we're going to do this at every event, we're going to target these two events, and we're going to partner with the event organizer to cover the cost of having somebody there, and use that as sort of a pilot.
The festival or some free admission,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
it's not
like working out something at a festival.
Yeah, like
as
you
a
got
volunteer.
Ned Gravel and Food and the Jazz and Wine Festival. Like those seem like great targets where you can be like, okay, we're going to partner with you guys, we'll split the cost of paying somebody to stand there and sort through stuff, or
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an option.
That's a great idea. I think I would need to talk with the event organizers to see if they'd be open to that. If they do have to spend money on hiring people to monitor the waste stations, I feel like that's more of a deterrent for them than if they just had volunteers to do it. My experience with trying to recruit volunteers for the farmers market this summer has been that no one wants to do it, and I have been the only one doing it. Besides, Melody has also worked at Ned Jazz and Wine, as well as Cinda, who is on the on the zero waste subcommittee. So there are a few other people already involved in this work doing it, but I think the only way to have consistency is to pay people to do it.
Does EcoCycle have any resources on this? I mean, with Roy being a local, longtime local, that
Mhm.
might.
EcoCycle would be great to reach out to. The last conversation I had with someone from EcoCycle was that they got rid of their volunteer program because they didn't find that that was going to be like the most impactful and long-term change. What they're trying to focus on now, from what I've heard, is that they want to encourage vendors to have reusable dishware and providing like the ability to wash and reuse things. And so I think they ran into the same issue with trying to find volunteers to staff these types of events, and just like, I think it was too much of a headache for them. And so the advice I got was not to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of some strategies that would sort of let us target, the third option without,
Yeah,
being
Spending
underwater on the budget.
totally.
Thanks, Luke. More questions?
Yeah, something a little, off the beaten path here. Did we explore, since they're willing to pay for infrastructure, they're willing to pay for physical things? And, we're talking a lot about people and that it's so hard to staff. Did we look into any automatic sorting bin containers where what you do is you put your waste in, and then there is basically automation and smart functionality on the inside that actually sorts it for you?
Um,
And to put those at basically, like a lot of our events as just even a first step.
yeah, I recently learned about those bins, and it's a really, really cool technology that I hope becomes cheaper. But I would say that was not part of the conversation, really because it's just not a widespread technology yet.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of makes it very front and center that we're willing to invest in some of those technologies.
Yeah.
And especially it helps compensate for, and it may be like something like this plus, some of the people, or some of the composting bins, but it's just like, where can we make a small investment or even a medium investment in something kind of technology focused that helps solve for the things that it's hard for us to get.
Yeah, and I think there's needs to be a few different approaches overall, and this grant is just to try and focus on like one aspect. And so something like what you're talking about, automatic sorting bins, would be, I think, a great use of like the funding for infrastructure. But then to have people, if we can't pay people because we don't have the funds, or we don't apply for that through this grant, then having some kind of mandate with our special events where if you are serving food or drinks or anything, you need to have people monitoring your waste stations, and you need to have, either 2 or 3 streams available. I think that would be something that would be interesting to consider for special events. Right now, I would say the zero waste agreement that these event organizers sign on, they do not follow.
Sure.
But that is not unique to Nederland. That is happening everywhere. It's happening in Boulder City. It's really difficult to enforce that, essentially. So, I think like if we can pursue that as like a different option, a different conversation, I think like that could be really effective for our events. But I do think in terms of the infrastructure side of things, pairing that with some kind of bin like that could be really cool. And, I said, I think the second option was, and the third option both had just like equipment costs of bins for different waste streams. And so I could definitely look into like how much that would cost, and see if it would make sense for a max amount of $30,000 is the only like limiting factor.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my concern with the first one is, Trustee Corvalon brought up, it's a bucket, or is it a bucket? Is it something beyond a bucket? Is it just going to collect and be a mop bucket instead? I know you want us to sort of use the inviscerator there, but other technologies have like where it composts it on your counter through electricity. And so, that could be another option if we really want folks to compost. I trialed that for like a year. I loved it. And all the compost goes in just because that's just worked out for me, right? Personally. But yeah, I would encourage us to kind of maybe think, just a little bit more broadly at something like that. Like if we were to put that at all of our events, or, we're able to get 2 of those infrastructure bins and then next year, apply for something else. Like I'm kind of interested in instead of a one-off or like a grant here, like what's the overall zero waste strategy for the next 2 years? And are we thinking big enough? Are we thinking visionary enough? Are we thinking, and what we asked for this year would be in line with that sort of that zero waste vision. Because next year would be the thing that sort of complements that or whatever, right? Those are some of the things that I'm thinking through.
Yeah, those are really great points, and definitely give me ideas for like ways in which this proposal can kind of combine maybe multiple aspects of these different options, and come up with something that, yeah, is more like looking long term, and maybe also involve some sort of data collection so we can inform how we want to move forward.
Yeah, and again, if for the most part, just doing some quick scans over the comprehensive plan, zero waste comports with that, but I would just ask again for another review and make sure that what this is comports very specifically with a priority in the comprehensive plan.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely look at that and figure out yeah.
So hopefully
Clearly.
moving forward, every time you bring something to us, it'll have that excerpt from the comprehensive plan or whatnot. And this is not just SAB that we would ask that for. It's every board moving forward to making sure that we're all sort of moving in conjunction with each other.
Yeah. Definitely do that.
More clarifying questions?
How much does one of those automatic sorting machines? How are you? Because I mean, that would be a cool investment for like events for us. Like you said, it's showing enthusiasm to participate, but I am just curious how much those things go for.
So a couple of years ago, it depends on, I haven't looked in the last couple of years, honestly. I know, not top of my list. But back then it would have been anywhere between like 5 and 15,000. And so.
That was less than I thought you were going to say, but.
Oh. Yeah, I should probably try to dig up wherever that is, but.
I mean, with AI, I think that this is becoming a more relevant technology.
Yeah, and so, yeah, so again, I would just, why not? If we have the ability to go pursue something like this and it specifically wants infrastructure, we could potentially help set a precedent for other communities, small mountain communities like ourselves that really want to drive a wedge in this. But maybe just thinking a little less, or just, just thinking a little more outside the box. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Does ChatGPT say anything?
It says 3,500 to 10,000 plus per unit.
So could be something.
Take that with a grain of salt. But
And with businesses being yeah, that's true. We need to validate, but with businesses being one of those high profile things and events that everyone's talking about, who knows? Might be worth a look.
I think kind of, in that same vein, like things that are sort of clearly visually associated with the town, like standardized bins or automatic sorting machine. It's like it's a what do they call that? Like a
like a symbol and
yeah,
it sends a
yeah,
message.
exactly. A
Yeah.
small
By
piece
example.
yeah, that like really signals that we're doing something about it. So like I think there's actually a lot of value in that beyond the basic sustainability value.
More questions for Cass? Now we'll go to public comment. There's no one in the room. Anyone online have any comments on this item?
Yes, Melody Baumhover, Netherland
Go.
resident, co-chair of Sustainability Advisory Board. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Melody.
The one note I have about the automatic sorting bins is I did approach a few staff members about it. I know Nikki Dunn had looked into them. I talked to Dawn at the community center. I think there is some hesitation from staff on the upkeep and management of this kind of newer technology that still has some kinks getting worked out. So I do want to make sure that staff is on board before we recommend something that they wouldn't like. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Melody. Good point. Kind of one of those unintended consequences John was talking about earlier.
Yeah, but I mean, staff has also said they don't want more trash cans in town because it's more work to take the trash to the facility. So I think we also need to also find a middle ground.
And if it reduces our overall like contamination, like these are all the the intended consequences too that we have to kind of think through. And I think that if this was, hypothetically something that we'd move forward, absolutely bringing staff on board and making sure that we're looking at it from all around.
Yeah, I think that keeping staff informed and considering their opinion is really important. I think with what we were talking about and having these at events, I'm not sure that would be as relevant to other staff members.
Good point. Yeah.
But that does bring in the question of whose responsibility, is it the sustainability coordinator who makes sure that the event organizers know how to use the machines and are, bringing them out, putting them away wherever they are stored, and who manages that process. Yeah, I think that would be another question.
And again, hypothetically, if this was ever something we moved forward with, I could be one of those that looks at the entire the deal from a software standpoint, from a hardware standpoint, and make sure that we have support packages in place. So there are other mitigation strategies that we can put in order to make sure that, we are zero risking ourselves. So again, I just raised the idea because I try to think, how can we push the boundaries of our little town and be bigger than we are?
Thanks, Nicole. Are there more public comments? I don't know that there is, but if so, If not, we'll bring it back to the board. So the questions here before the board are on page 71 at the bottom. Does the board have any concerns about pursuing circular economy funding? Which option, if any, does the board recommend CAS proceed with for writing an application? It's like there might be an interest. There seemed to be, I mean, we could nod on it too. Seemed like there's an interest in the number one. I think number two, though, is not clear to me, at least so far.
From what?
Well, the question's clear, but the answer is what I'm saying.
Oh,
Yeah. Which options, if any? So we're kind of throwing out I'm hearing like a fourth option, but what do the board members, do you have any concerns about, do we have any concerns about pursuing this funding? Is the match just kind of like, I think similar, I know it's the county versus the state, but is a match,
there's no-
matching matter ultimately in the
no
eyes
match
of the, well, it
required.
says allowed but not required.
Yeah,
Allowed is kind of an interesting word, yeah.
I know. It does have an option for like if you want to provide a match, but I think that's more if you know that your proposal is going to be greater than $30,000, and that's how much you're applying for. Like, how much else are you putting into it? And I think we would just be applying for under that amount.
Okay. Yeah. Any other concerns about pursuing this funding?
Well, just recognizing that it's kind of a quick turnaround too, like you're wanting to bring this back to us on the next meeting and then have a decision, because the application is due on September 30th, kind of like the other one. I think it was the 26th. I mean, I would be interested in just getting some more information on something like an automatic or, a technology solution, just to see. I'm curious. Otherwise, I would say totally get where number two is going in terms of like trying to collect data. I would concur that I'm not sure how competitive something like that would be. That would be my concern with number two for sure. And number one, I'm having a hard time with that one. I really am.
Yeah.
I feel like it'll just be a bucket that gets sat, and a lot of the folks who are doing composting, like Tanya, it's like, well, I'm already doing that. I've already got the bucket. I'm already someone who's entrenched in that behavior. My next step is actually, can I just do the composting on my property, or like those countertop ones that do it on your counter, right? I think that's like, if we were to consider something, it would be like that next step level of helping folks just do it on their property instead of having to take it in. So that's my thoughts on number one.
So yeah, so it sounds like number one, no one has any concerns that they're expressing, at least, that would say don't go for this funding. So great on number one. Number two, it's like the three options are good, but there's potentially another fourth or maybe fifth to research, and then you got 2 weeks to do it. So there's that reality. What do other trustees, actually, did you want to answer that? I'm just kind of like paraphrasing.
Like, I definitely recognize that this is a quick turnaround, and we know that they have this funding or have had this funding for the last 27 years. So it is something that will come next year if we do want to do more research and not pursue it this year. Like, I do, like, I want to bring what I find at the next meeting, but it can always be an option that we just don't apply this year and we put in more effort to figure out what we're going to apply for next year.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, we could probably apply both years, right? So I mean, I don't think it doesn't have to be either or. But I mean, but we can just talk about that in 2 weeks. But in 2 weeks, do you have time to, and I want to hear from more board members, but do you have time to do more on this?
Yes. Yeah, no,
Okay.
I have that time.
Okay. Other board members, questions or comments?
It sounds like your next plan was already to go to Boulder County and kind of see, or your recommended plan was to go to them and ask them about option 2, see how competitive it would be. Do you think it would be worth also kind of in that discussion asking them about some of this technology and the self-sorting smart bins? And then we can kind of, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, getting to know what they think about option 2, but also just kind of sussing out whether they have experience with these smart AI bins and if they, have any concerns about them or if that would be competitive at all. And maybe we just get a sense, but I like your recommended plan of attack. I think if there's, money for option 1, and I get the concern that it might not be the best bang for the buck, but otherwise we have no buck. And some people might want some countertop compost bins. I think it can't hurt unless it would hurt us next year trying to go again if we did this kind of project and then, we don't have data showing that it worked and it ended up just being, we had a bunch of extra compost bins in the community center that nobody picked up. That would be my only concern about option 1. Yes.
Thanks, Tierney. Other trustees, what are you thinking?
I'd just say, like, depending on how quickly your information moves, that if it looks like we can't meet all the targets to get an application in for one of the preferred ones, like how realistic might it be to just say, okay, we're gonna apply for the first one, or the first one that was sort of the easiest one to put together. Like, we're gonna just apply for that and see how far we can get, and then next year we'll have it more together and we'll do the bigger one. Is that like a realistic way to
Yeah, I
fall
think
back?
yeah, I think that's kind of the idea I had, and so I would be fine with like bringing that, both of those kind of options to you at the next meeting.
Right.
Other comments from the board? I think that'd be great. I mean, I think ultimately we don't have to decide on one tonight, so it's bring these to us. And this other third option, if you can, or fourth option, if you can dig into that more.
Yeah, and also like pursuing the restaurant compost idea. And not only that, not for this grant, I'm talking about the future, because I agree it's a quick turnaround and all those ideas sound great. So if you could get any of those going, I think that would be wonderful. As long as it doesn't hurt our chances for next year. But I just wanted to say that in the NEDA had talked about, when Ron was on the board, a business, I forgot the word he used. He had a word for it, but he was like, the restaurants and businesses really want like a trash facility in town, where the cardboard, they get so much cardboard, it's overwhelming, they just, and so it would be interesting. I know we don't have like a location for that, but that is something that could be brought up for a future grant idea too. A town sort of restaurant business area. And he had said he would volunteer the space for it actually in one of his lots, but something to think about for the future, for future stuff. Sorry, I'm not trying
It's like
but I like
basically
your
a sorting.
a sorting facility within town, where the people, and then I guess there would be a pickup going on. Maybe they would all pitch in for that service. That I don't remember. It didn't get any traction. Then he got off the board and it didn't move forward. But it sounded like a good idea, and it seems like something that SAB and NEDA could collaborate on. NEDA does have money, so just for future. I'm not trying to bog you down on this. That's obviously you're not going to come up with that in 2 weeks. But and I like all these ideas. Even a new little bin for people. If it's not going to hurt our chances for next year, is not the worst thing. Or you could have less of them and come up with actual composting. I mean, that has come up before, like the actual bear-proof composting bins. You'd get, instead of like 100, you'd have to give out 20, but still. But thank you. I appreciate all of those opportunities that you're coming up with. That's great.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya.
And actually, to that point, Tanya, thanks for bringing that up. It was, the way station that Ron was proposing.
I
But to
remember,
that, but to that point, she did state NDDA does have money. If there was a matching grant that did benefit businesses downtown, or there was an opportunity for that, you could potentially write that into this grant, correct?
Into this grant specifically?
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to go to the NDDA to ask for some of the matching funds because the service might, provide help for downtown towns. I mean, that's another option that if you guys haven't thought about that, that could be an option.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're speaking about next year,
Yeah.
not in 2 weeks.
I mean, I don't know when the next NDDA meeting is, but
Well, they don't move quick, so yeah.
It's next week, right?
Oh.
if you don't have time to pull it all together, totally understand.
And it would have to come back to us.
I
blah,
think
blah, blah.
I think with my
Yeah.
experience working with the NDDA, it would not be a quick process.
Gotcha. Yeah, but so maybe something to think about as we start to build out more of these strategies of, maybe you have a matching source that you didn't consider initially.
And there is a grant that is on my radar. It's the Colorado Circular Communities Grant, C3. And I don't believe it has a matching requirement. And it's for bigger projects, but it requires a lot more work and it is rolling. And so that is something that has been on my mind once we have this like restaurant composting idea more figured out. But having this other idea and knowing that there was some, support behind it with Ron on the NDDA, that could be integrated into that. Yeah, that's good to know.
Do you need any other guidance or nods, or do you have everything you need from us?
I think I have enough direction to move forward.
Great, John, anything you need on this?
No, thank you all.
Thanks, Cass. Appreciate it. I think the next one is actually John, so.
Well, Mayor and trustees, earlier
Just for,
this year,
just for everyone's, it's the strategic planning process in 2026 priorities.
earlier this year, we were planning on trying to hold a strategic planning retreat, and we ran into some scheduling challenges for that. But I think we still have a good opportunity to make sure that we're establishing priorities for 2026 and thinking through like whatever process would best support that. I have provided you with a staff report that has some of the goals that have come up over our conversations that we've talked about pushing into that conversation. And I just wanted to kind of start y'all thinking about how you might think about that for next year. Just to kind of run it through, I think probably the major focus of our work next year will be the acquisition of Eldora. There's a lot of work that goes into that, everything from the financial pieces, making sure we get that set up correctly, to making sure that we get all the employees where they need to be in terms of their plans and all of that kind of thing. So I think ultimately that's probably one of the big things that we'll be doing next year. I try to kind of put the priorities that I have heard us talk about in conversation into themes. So just to run through them quickly, the first one I've got is governance and organizational culture. First priority in that section is home rule and the home rule conversation, which does require some thinking to make sure that we'd get through all the public processes that might be required for that. I've got continuing to build a culture of trust, engagement, and innovation throughout our organization, continuing to be an employer of choice, and maintaining fiscal responsibility in our general fund. For service delivery and community engagement, I have review and refine policies and practices so services are consistent, user-focused, and responsive. Building systems to make service delivery clearer and more transparent to the public, and strengthening collaboration across departments to improve community trust and engagement. Water and wastewater, I've got executing the capital improvement plan, evaluating fee structures with a focus on affordability, considering a transition to monthly billing for water and wastewater, and protecting and securing the town's water rights. Community projects and facilities, I've got performance space at Barker Reservoir, Gercio Fields, trails, and hockey rink improvements. Completion of grant-funded projects, most specifically the Big Springs Egress project and the SMS and TIPS projects. And then advancing the downtown core vision and affordable housing. Strategic initiatives, I've got implementation of the comp plan, sub-area plan, and multimodal plan, broadband expansion project, multi-jurisdictional housing authority with Gilpin County, consideration of a Nederland police or marshal, fire mitigation planning. Just put a couple of options for how we might do this in my staff report. We could still hold a retreat this fall to adopt some sort of strategic plan, kind of similar to what you did last time. We could create priorities just through structured discussions in our regular meetings like this one. We could adopt some kind of mini plan for 2026 and engage in a more comprehensive process after the Eldora deal is finished. Or we could kind of combine approaches, making sure that we have some priorities for right now and then planning a future full retreat. Just a couple of questions for you. What are the right priorities that you guys would like to focus on in 2026? Is there any way that you'd rank these that we should be thinking about? And these will also kind of inform our budgetary conversation, just to say that. And then are we missing any priorities that should be on this list? And do you have any preference for how we might work on these priorities as we move forward? And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Clarifying questions for John.
I don't have a clarifying question, but I wanted to add something to the list. I don't know if that now's the time
Yeah.
or.
That
Well,
seems good.
I had talked to, well, all you guys, I think at many points, we have the parking study, traffic study current. So I think we should also include something of that nature. Creating more parking within our right of way in areas that are pretty clear to do, we should do. And I also think certain like improvements like left turn lanes on Lakeview and things like that have been talked about for years, implemented really quickly. I think they should be done. I think and I think we need to use these studies now while they're current. So I think parking and traffic should be on the list as well. And then my opinion is having maybe within our meetings, small discussions regarding it, because I don't think we're gonna have time for a retreat given everything else going on with budget season in Eldora. So, and then after the new year, it's kind of like, why not wait for the next board to come in April? So I think at this point, it'd be good just to get the mini stuff done so that for the budgets, that things can get budgeted according to our priorities now for next year.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
What other questions? And questions would include, saying out loud priorities you think are missing.
Well, I don't know if I'm missing something completely, but on the last one, it says implementation of a comprehensive plan, sub-area plan, multimodal plan, like that sort of cover everything.
Yeah, and that's where part of my feedback is, do each one of us know like the specific priorities in there and what would we prioritize as one over the other? So, Trustee Corvalon brought up some of the parking on Lakeview. Was there anything else in that multimodal plan that would have a greater impact, a lower hanging fruit, or maybe as a dependency in order for a larger parking strategy?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like the kind of breaking down of the goals in those plans and like what are the priorities, both that the plans themselves lay out as their priorities, and then also like what can we actually achieve. And to Tanya's point, like it's not clear how much time we'll have to focus on this, so
and we can also set up some of the work for that next board.
Right. And, trying to keep this strategic as opposed to, nitty gritty. I mean, there are a million things that we could all say are like super important, specific, parking in downtown. Like that's a big thing to get done, but it might be better to focus on the downtown sub-area plan as a thing, and then that's the strategy, and then we leave the sort of more granular things to the next phase. But
Well, just to be clear too, even at the sub area plan, there are some very granular things that we would have to prioritize and decide. Some of those, the planning commission is also picking up, which might also be helpful, John, in another iteration of this, is just to remind the board what the planning commission is doing around the sub area plan, and some of those goals. And then hopefully we sort of all, piece it together. And we may also, because this was something that I was very clear with the planning commission when they were coming up with those goals, is like, just like, this is great, and it may change in reaction to what the board decides ultimately as a strategic plan. And so we need to be flexible and open for that.
Yeah, and the roast plan too is
Mm-hmm.
not complete, but would be by the time we start on this.
Yeah, and something like that actually might be really helpful for us, is to understand, like, even if there's a semi-final draft of like what is being talked about in your board. And, it would, I mean, yes, we always want to, have our thing sort of floated to the top, but where does that fit within water rights and Eldora and home rule, or, whatever it might be?
Yeah, there was actually a hope that we would have a draft of the Prost to bring to the BOT for this meeting, but I think it will be next meeting before we can get that draft. But that would at least give the board a chance to like look through and see what
Have some idea.
Parks has
Right.
done. I mean, we've definitely made an effort to align it with the multi-modal plan and the sub-area plan. So, but I think that just in the context of trying to come up with our priorities for this thing, I think one of the primary things would be pulling out the key things from those other plans, because they, a lot of work has gone into those.
More clarifying questions?
Oh. If no one else has anything to say, I have something
for it.
else to say. Well, like for instance, something like home rule, which we've talked about a couple times and within the past 4 or 5 years. It seems like something that we could just bring up in the next couple months as a discussion item and decide, is this something we want to put on the April election? Because I think that's the first step, is that the town has to agree to want to go to home rule. Then if it passes, then we have to create the charter and the committee that makes the charter and all that. But I think that's like the first step, and I'm sure I'm missing something. But I think like we could, in the next couple months, have a meeting or two where we decide to put that on the ballot and we start working on that language so that by April it is already in motion to occur. So I just feel like I'm kind of like tired of a lot of like discussion. I think there's things that we want to do and I just want to do them. And if, like that's the next step, right? The town has to vote on it. Not everybody wants to be home rule. Some of us do, some don't. But we have to have a couple meetings to get everybody up to speed on the pros and cons and et cetera. Does that make sense? So
It does.
some of these things that we are on this list are things that we need to get done. We don't need to like say we need to get it done. We just need to do it. So I just would like to like just say, okay, hey, let's just put this on the agenda and we'll decide in the next couple of meetings, do we want to put this on the ballot? And if so, then we have somebody work on getting the ballot language and then that's done. Move on to the next thing. Doesn't have to be a big discussion. I mean, obviously, if that passes, then it's a big ordeal, huge process, but we worry about that later.
Jennifer, would it be logical for, can it go on like one of our regular elections?
Yes, you can put
Okay.
it on the April ballot.
Great.
One note, though, is you do have to have people ready to be on the Charter Commission. So that is part of the election in April as well. And you need 9 people.
Okay.
Charter Commission.
Before it's on the ballot, these 9 people are already like in the ballot language. It says, and we have this committee already formed. These people are on it, blah, 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 like that.
The registered electors vote for the people to be on the Charter Commission. So it's
Oh,
It's a
okay.
Separate election to vote to see who goes on the charter commission. So it sounds kind of odd that you're doing both at the same time.
Huh.
But the idea is if
So there's a
if
ballot
you're
question and then
concerned-
there's,
Okay.
you
Well,
just, so
well,
there's a
thank-
ballot question and there's also, you know,
Do
some-
you approve of these 9
do you
people?
approve of these people or of these, whatever? I mean, would
And
it be,
each one. Oh, go ahead.
would it be, say 10 people wanted to run, is that how that works too, or
Yeah,
no?
I
Thanks
don't
for
hear anything.
clarifying that.
I missed her answer.
Basically, yeah, if 20 people want to run, 20 names are there and people vote
Oh,
for them. And
cool.
the
Okay, the judge or
top
something.
9 are on there, but that has to happen at the same time a ballot happens, just saying, do you want to go home rule or not?
Okay. Well, still, I think we have time to get it done by the April election if it's something that this board is motivated to put to the voters. And I'm just saying, we don't need to like wait until the next, we could get the ball rolling. If we were motivated, we could have a couple meetings to talk about it and then check that off the list, you know? That's all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Makes
I'm down
sense.
for a couple more meetings about it.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
What other comments or, specific comments about the priorities listed, or I don't know, or ranking, if you want to go into that detail now, or missing, how about missing would be another thing, or just clarifying questions before we got the public comment. And then also, we can talk about this more after public comment, but if you have anything specific you want to say about your preference for, or ask questions about preferences for how we work on these strategic priorities.
I guess I'll just say that I have our comp plan up again and I'm like overwhelmed just looking at it. There's just so many like quote unquote strategies, which are really like goals and things to do. And I think this is a really good opportunity to prioritize of the goals that have already been identified. And John, the last thing I want to do is create more work for you. But I think that something that also we as a board should work on and probably do is go through these quote unquote strategies, but they're really just a to-do list, and see maybe what we prioritize from there. And I think a lot of them align with what you have already identified, but I just really would be remiss if we have this whole comp plan and we have all these strategies and we didn't review it and kind of link the two together when we created a strategic plan, because it feels like that's really what the comp plan is for, to guide that. So I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost, and I'm not sure when that comes in or what we would do to make that happen. But I just want to.
There are some general implementation timelines that are included in there, and so it's just a very big conversation with those 3 plans all together. So maybe that's part of what we need to talk about, is how we tackle that together.
Yeah, because it's theoretically a 10-year plan. So like if we're talking about 2026, I guess we look and see what are the things that it calls out for, like already prioritized as the first ones to go after.
Yeah, funding is also the other question, because we're going to be in a constrained situation fiscally, so we want to make sure that the work that we're tackling is work we can accomplish.
Yes, or can be funded. But then it also comes back to, I'll just pull us back to the whole donation policy. Where's the staff capacity? Do we have staff capacity to do some of these things, right? There's sort of decision criteria too that we can use in order to help prioritize these things. So I would say, like, 1, it's documented in our comprehensive plan. 2, it's backed up in another plan like multimodal. I would also ask us not to forget the housing needs assessment as well, to make sure that we're sort of pulled that in. But my feeling is that the board needs to, each one of us as individuals, if we haven't read any of these plans, like, we have to do that. And we need to know what the priorities are in these plans so that we can come and have a more informed discussion and help prioritize. Because you're right, when you look at the comprehensive plan, it's like, oh my goodness. Which do we, and that's our job. Our job is to say, okay, what's the most low hanging fruit? What can we tackle along with staff input? And what is getting us to that greater goal? And
Just,
so,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I was saying also just remembering that we have a really big task ahead of us next year that
Yeah.
needs to make sure that we handle.
Right. And so, and knowing that that's coming up is where there's synergies, like where are there potential things that we can do to leverage that, some of those big things. Luke, you brought up the sub area plan. If we were trying to really get something very granular, and if we were to focus on a sub area plan, well, you know what else is also in that sub area plan? Parking, multimodal opportunities. And so it may be that we don't focus necessarily on these different strategies from the different reports and studies, but maybe we do focus on a certain area and do really well to build that area out, which might also comport and be very synergistic with, potentially moving forward with an Eldora plan.
Yeah, and I think, there probably is like a combination of like a matrix of like, common priorities between all the plans, and be like, okay, here's something that, in one shape or another exists in 3 out of the 4. But I think that the idea of supporting things, things that will support, as John said, we have a lot on our plate next year that's going to be super important to get done right. Like, what are the things in these plans that will give more support to that goal, and maybe prioritize those over other stuff, just because we need to be realistic about how much we can bite off and what is going to have the impact and where. So I think that might be, and I don't know if I just missed it in this round of talking, but are we still talking about doing like a working session on this? On the strategic goals?
I think that would be number 2, establish 2026 priorities through structured discussions and regular meetings, possibly a work session. I think last time we did talk more about combining it in regular meetings. We're going to have some work sessions coming up around Eldora too, and town halls. But yes, we could also potentially have one for this. We will have another one for budget though, for on top of regular meetings. So I think part of it was like making it fit better in regular meetings. John, when you say combine approaches, setting immediate priorities now and planning for full retreat, is it more like combining two and 3 and then looking to do number 1 in 2026?
Yeah, and I think what we want is something to guide that budget conversation.
Mhm.
The other thing I think is really important is our like levels of service we're already providing too, and just thinking through that, because we have a lot of staff that's already, I don't think anybody's, I just want to be aware of their time and really focusing us on the services that government provides that no one else provides, like making sure toilets flush and, that people can get their business license and things like that. So I think that that's part of that too, is looking at the priorities we have and making sure that we're really doing a good job of our governance, and then thinking about the capacity around that. And I think that that's part of that conversation.
Mhm.
The other thing I would fold into this is thinking through whatever those priorities are, that we then think through how the other boards can support that priority.
Right.
So, for instance, just hypothetically, let's say we focus on the sub area plan. Okay, then what do each of the boards, and like I said, the planning commission has already sort of moved in that direction, but what do we need the other boards to do in order to facilitate our overarching goal? In fact, almost to the point, to the point where I've told John, like, we should potentially consider, like, once these strategic goals are fulfilled, or at least we have a working draft, inviting the boards to then, hey, this is what we would want you to take on, or what would you fill in as a part of the strategic priorities.
Yeah.
So I don't want us to lose that perspective as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like, quite honestly, like what they can do to support us too, right? Like,
100%. We want their ideas. We can come with a framework and an idea of like, hey, this is how we would think that you would plug in, but tell us if you think of something even better.
yeah,
Right.
well, and just, I mean, there's a lot to do to execute this stuff. Like, there's more brain power resources in all the other boards. Like they can just kind of help to put things together.
Because yeah, one of the things I think that we can get even better at is setting these strategic priorities, but then making sure that our boards are in lockstep with us so that they're not off doing something that doesn't comport with what we need, because we're growing up and have some big britches, to fill in these next couple of years. And like you said, we've got a lot of talent and we need everybody on deck.
Yeah, totally. John, did I understand you right when you said that you were hoping the strategic plan would guide the budget discussion?
Yeah, a little bit. I think
so.
I put some of the goals in there that I wanted to really be specific to that. One of them is the fiscal responsibility. I have a feeling you're going to see a little bit healthier budget than we were really thinking about last December, but we're not quite out of the woods yet. And so I think we want to keep that going. And I think we need to be disciplined and structured in the work we're taking on. And part of that also goes with this thing I just said about staff, is just making sure that our staff handles our critical services really well. Those things are important. I think you guys have done a lot of work in terms of pay over the last few years for staff, but there's some other things that we need to work on. There may be some capacity issues in some departments, and just moving things so that they're as functional as possible. And I just want to keep that in this conversation of like, when we're talking about budget and we're thinking about projects, we're putting that into the context of making sure that our government is really trustworthy and really transparent, and like we're really doing the things that government does well. And I think that that's a lens that we can put on any of these things really effectively as we're kind of having that budget conversation, kind of to Nicole's point about criteria.
Right. But if we're gonna use strategic planning to guide budget, that means we need to do some of that work first, which doesn't give us a lot of time to think through a lot of information and all the various master plans to come up with some even just high level direction on.
Yeah, I think we have to keep that in mind. Time is short. And so, one of the suggestions that John has on here is, do we have kind of a short-term mini plan, for 2026? Because to be honest, like just even for staff, potentially just Eldora and home rule is a lot, like a ton of work, and even on our behalf. And so, so then do we choose like a third one, like as the mini plan, and that's what we stick to, and we get all of our boards on, the same page with us, and we decide to move forward with that. So then what is that third thing? Like, what would we all agree to that is super important for connecting our town to Eldora and the future that we want to build for our community? What is that thing?
Yeah. And I mean, as John keeps saying, like a lot of it is just keeping the town functioning at the level that, we want it to function. And maybe that is like a goal in itself, that on top of home rule and Eldora is like, we should really be, instead of trying to like, there's going to be a lot of opportunity down the road to make new things and come up with great ideas and fix problems, but like just having a solid foundation to start from is.
Yes. And I'm not saying home rule is number 2. I'm just saying it could bubble to the top. So
yes. One thing some communities do that you could think about in kind of in that kind of hybrid approach in this mini term is to really think about ways that you look at projects and how they fit with what you're doing. And you kind of had that conversation already with the criteria idea from the comp plan. But we have a couple of big projects that we could look at. And I think we could continue that in this kind of mini phrase, but you could also give yourself a way to just say, hey, this is something that fits with our goals, so that when a conversation comes up, to Tanya's point, it doesn't just get pushed a year or whatever, but there's a way to have structure that conversation. And I think like a lot of it is just identifying the values that you're addressing this next period in. I think with Eldora, like what we're really talking about is organizational capacity and with these boards structure, like how our town works together. These are the things that we really have been thinking about. And then there's these other bigger projects. The one that I would encourage you is I think we're still making progress on affordable housing. It's challenging, and I think like we're going to keep chipping away till we get the project essentially. But we have some opportunities with Boulder County Housing Authority and the new affordable housing tax to maybe get a project here. So that's a thing that we should continue working on. But maybe there's a couple of high arching priorities, and then things that like all of our departments can focus on in their work. It is something I've heard from the community center specifically that they don't have a goal right now that's aligned to the strategic plan. And I don't think that that's 100% true. I think it's just not specifically calling them out. But maybe there are some overarching goals that our departments could work on in terms of service delivery and making sure that we're really focusing on the user experience of a resident coming to government or whatever that is. And just kind of thinking through that kind of that broad, kind of the broad part of the vision. And then maybe in 2026, we really dial it. Or maybe it's a broad part of the vision in a couple of these big projects, and then you dial it in further.
Yeah, because one of the things that's actually not on here, but has huge implication from Eldora is technology. If this goes through, there are new technology postures that the town is going to have. And so when we talk about what that resident experience looks like, technology could possibly be one of those things that isn't articulated on here, but it becomes a foundational piece for other things that we want to do in the future.
Any more clarifying questions? I want to go to public comment and get other things done. So we're out of here by 10. Public comment. No one's in the room. Anyone else online have a comment on this subject, strategic planning from the public? By the way, you lost video if it matters, guys in the room. So, if not, we'll bring it back to the board. I didn't want to cut you off, but I figure we'll just come back to this and keep going. I think it's good guidance, good reminder to read the plans if you haven't yet, and really kind of start getting set on what of those things is more immediate. And yeah, the reality is we have some huge things that are pressing with Eldora, and if home rule happens, it's another big thing. And housing, the clock is ticking on 13 permits for the housing. So
Yeah, that's what I was about to
slide.
say. Sounds like that should be a priority too. So
Yeah.
it seems like that's a lot.
And if we sit back and think about it, we may have a couple more. So that kind of fall into that, there's an external force that's dictating a time frame too. So what other points do folks want to discuss? The questions before the board being, what are the right priorities? How would we rank these? Is there anything missing? And again, these are just things that come up now. Things come to you later. Email John. I'd say is probably the best way to get answers and ideas flowing. And is there a preference for how we work on these priorities, given those options above?
I think that's the question we need to answer right now.
Yeah, agreed. What do folks think? We've already started a conversation, but let's get to a.
I think Nicole's point of basically between Eldora and whether it's home rule or something else significant, we don't really have much room for that. Kind of has to be, and I would support saying solid town operations as another key one. And then it definitely 2026 is going to be a year of just trying to stay stable. There's going to be more for us to do with Eldora than right. So trying to put a bunch of other stuff on a priority list seems a little bit. So I'd pick no more than 3.
Do we have all the information today amongst you as all of us as individuals to make a decision on priorities right now?
I wouldn't say right now, but I
No.
would say probably by next meeting.
So if we were to ask to bring this back, the same question of how would we prioritize so that all of us can have an opportunity to go look at the different plans and, you know, because we could be correct here in that we are telling ourselves only 3. Or as we dig into this, we may say, there's an overarching theme here between all these plans. What if we made small steps in that direction as well?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And so do we need an extra meeting to do that homework is my question to the board.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because there's no magic number, because the housing thing has to happen too. I mean, end of 2026, if we don't meet that, we're kind of out of the 123
We're-
game for a while.
We're not going to meet the goal. That's not going to happen for us. It has to be
Of
this,
13 permits at
No.
the end of the year?
it has to be this year, and we're not. gonna
No,
do
no,
Well, it's 2020.
6. It's
Oh,
next.
wait,
No,
yeah,
you're,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not
I'm
true,
sorry.
John.
No,
Yeah.
you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It,
that's all right.
it does feel like 2026 is almost over.
Yeah.
I feel
Sorry.
that same way.
Yeah, we have, you know, almost 16 months. But I mean, it's going to be hard to meet it, but like, we got a little breathing room. Sorry, I didn't mean,
No,
I
I
didn't mean
don't.
to
No,
say it
you're
that
right.
way,
I
but-
don't know. I was thinking.
And they just have to be permitted. They don't have to be built.
Right. That's where I think it's doable. It's not going to happen by us not prioritizing it though.
Right. So, well, what's the next idea? Then maybe just we do this in chunks then and have another meeting, another agenda item where we kind of like solidify some of our goals here.
I think there was good, I mean, if there's a little homework for folks to look at these
Read all
plans. I mean, the sub-area plan, I would recommend, you know, people,
That's
if there's another work session with the PC that was actually open to the BOT and we just didn't do a good job of letting folks know, try to attend. You know, they got through a good portion of it. We got through a good portion of it on last Wednesday, but more BOT members there I think would be helpful. Ultimately, it's good to just listen and be part of it. I think as much as possible, knowing that we can take it a different direction or the same depending on what we want. But the sub-area plan's in progress. So if you want to learn about it, those are great. That would be a great meeting to be at. But the other plans, read through. I mean, there's going to be a lot going on at our next meeting, but revisiting this again it seems reasonable.
If we bring this back on the 16th, we don't meet again until the 7th of October, which might be a busy window.
3 weeks. We might have some other things that happen in between there, but yeah.
Right. I'm just wondering, is there enough time between tonight and the 16th to get to a point where we could set some priorities on the 16th, or do we need the 16th to work through stuff and then we would set priorities at sometime?
We have to look at, but on the 16th, we're pretty packed right now. That is one consideration.
Yeah, because we want to have enough time to hash it out. I mean, I wonder if there's anything we could do via email or something. Where we
Mhm.
send John some of our priorities and he can, I know he just did that, but like now after this discussion.
Thoughts? I mean, yeah, it's obviously the more of this we talk about in public, the better. At the same time, just getting some more ideas. I think, which I said earlier, some of these questions you're going to think about over the next week or two and have ideas and email John. But I'm just, John, potentially we can look at the 16th and maybe or maybe not something can come off. But if not, it might be tight to bring in a significant discussion into that agenda. So it might have to go to the 7th, which is just something.
Or that
Potentially.
we have a work session in between.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Especially if it's budget, if it's tied to the budget, then it almost makes it.
Well, it kind of is. Because nothing can be done without money, so.
Correct. That's fine. We just may also have other special meetings popping up here this month. So.
Well, we can also wait till November, I mean, but.
Wait, October, yeah, I mean, like, if not, again, there's a special budget meeting already, a placeholder on the 14th, so I think my thoughts are email John any ideas you have regarding those 4 questions. We can just be compiling things. It's not reasonable for us to just necessarily have it all in our heads right now, but and then we can just look at the schedule and see, realistically is there room for that, and if not, then we talk about a work session or.
If you guys have enough of a direction, just kind of guide your budget conversation through the rest of the year, we can, I know we talked about this last year too, but early next year, once the acquisition is complete, that process is kind of gone through, go back and go through and dial it in more. Because I think one thing that was very successful about our last plan was those use of SMART goals. And I think that you're going to want that as a part of this process too. So I guess I'm just kind of throwing out there that other option of like, that we can dial this in more if we get kind of the framework that you need. So maybe that's what we could do, is if you guys send me your goals, we could bring it back on the 16th with a discussion item, and you can see if you're ready to do that or if you want to have another work session.
Yeah. And I think that if we brought it to the 16th, I mean, just looking at a couple of things that could probably get moved off.
Agreed.
This is a priority. And so if folks need a little bit more time with some of those things, like we could probably make some room.
Yep.
Are you saying making priorities is a priority?
Making priorities.
We will make a priority out of making priorities.
Also, John, real quick, I just pulled the September 5th, 2023 agenda, and it's the deadline is December 31st, 2026 for proposition.
Yeah.
I
knew that in my head.
I was having a brain moment there. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And if the town fails to achieve this commitment target, it will be ineligible for funding in 2027, but may file a 2-year commitment by November 1st, 2027 to get 2028 funds.
There's some other things happening in naturally affordable housing too that we should be fine, I think.
Yeah, I think so too.
There's some other things happening in what? I'm sorry.
Basically, they're letting you count housing that's already affordable in your community, or that's what they're likely to do, to give some
breathing room.
But I think we're still, some of these projects we have going on are good candidates to meet the goal no matter what. So
Great. That's good. Well, thank you. Yeah, there is definitely, even though it's a packed schedule, there's some things that could definitely move. Any other comments or questions on this? And if not, John, do you have what you need?
yes, so I'll bring you back a aim on the 16th that kind of tees up this conversation for you. And if you have things you'd like to add to the list here, please send them to me.
Thank you. Appreciate it. With that, we'll go to public comments on non-agenda items. There's no one in the room. If anyone online has a public comment on a non-agenda item, now's your time. Great. And then any other business? I have one.
Okay,
you go.
In SAB, we have decided to elect 2 people to go to Partners in Energy meetings. We elected Jack and Cass, and then Melody and Rich are our stand-ins if Jack or Cass cannot attend the meetings.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, mine is just a reminder. I said it once, I'll say it again. Sub-area plan, when the PC comes together with another work session, that's still the plan, right? I think in September. Just please let us know, and I'd encourage trustees to go. And that's all on that. Any other business? I have one more, and I'll be quick. I was going to hold up. I'll just say, Jennifer and I were talking about different ways to, make meetings to just improve. on how I do this and how we do this. And one idea that came up, we all did a good job, including me holding it tonight, but like, I think for bathroom breaks, since we generally are doing better on timing, we're going to break officially and no one will be in the room talking so that we all participate in the meeting as it happens. We kind of got away from that at times because we were having longer meetings and it was efficient, but maybe if we do it effectively, a 5-minute break in the middle, if we keep it to 5, may just be okay. So we'll see. We'll see how the need arises, but thanks everyone. Motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mayor Belly,
Yes.
trustee Miller,
Yes, please.
trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
trustee Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
and trustee Maris.
Yes.
Thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 9:57 p.m.
Thanks everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you all.